Okay, get ready for this. Imagine a single country that holds not one, not 10, but hundreds of completely different peoples inside its borders. We're talking different languages, different histories, different worlds, all sharing one name. So, how did that happen? Let's get into it.
First, just look at that number. Over 250. Just let that sink in for a second. And we're not talking about slightly different neighborhoods here. No, these are distinct nations, groups with their own deep histories and cultures, peoples who, for centuries, saw themselves as entirely separate.
And if you think that's wild, it gets even more complex. You've also got more than 500. That's over 500 totally unique ways of seeing the world, of telling stories, of just being, all packed into one single country. So you gotta ask, right? How on earth did this happen? How did this incredible, complicated human puzzle get assembled? Was it fate, or is it something else entirely?
Well, to find the answer, we have to rewind the clock way back before Nigeria even existed as an idea. The first clues are buried in the powerful civilizations that once called this land home.
Now, we can't look at all 250, but let's just take three major examples that show you just how different these worlds were. You had the Yoruba in the southwest, the Igbo in the southeast, and the huge Hausa-Fulani empires up in the north. And this is where it gets really interesting, because they couldn't be more different. The Yoruba, they had these sophisticated city-states led by divine kings. But then you look at the Igbo, and they had no central ruler at all. Power was spread out among village councils. And up north, the Hausa-Fulani built this massive organized Islamic caliphate. I mean, these are three completely different blueprints for how to run a society. And these weren't simple societies, not by a long shot. Just look at the art from the Yoruba city of Ife. The realism of these bronze sculptures was literally centuries ahead of what artists were doing in Europe. This was mastery, pure and simple.
Now contrast that with the Igbo. With their system of debates and village councils, where everyone had a voice, it really makes you wonder, were they practicing a form of democracy long before the word was even common? It's a fascinating idea.
And here's the kicker. We've only talked about three groups. Remember, the land was this vibrant, sprawling mosaic of hundreds of different peoples. Yeah, they traded and sometimes they fought, but they were absolutely not one single nation.
And then, everything changed. A new power arrived from overseas, a power that wasn't interested in this complex mosaic. It was interested in one thing: control. And it was about to draw some lines on a map that would change history forever.
So, in the late 1800s, the British show up. By 1900, they've carved out two big chunks of territory, a southern protectorate and a northern protectorate. But then, in 1914, they decided to merge them. The official reason? Administrative convenience. You know what that really means? It was all about the money. It was just cheaper and easier to manage the two regions as one big colony. And just like that, with the stroke of a pen, Nigeria was born.
Just let that sink in. The name itself, Nigeria, was thought up by a British journalist. This wasn't a nation that grew organically from a shared culture or a common dream. It was an invention, created for the sake of colonial efficiency.
You'd think they would have tried to unite everyone, right? Nope, they actually did the opposite. In the north, they ruled indirectly, leaving the traditional Islamic structures in place. But in the south, they brought in Christian missionaries and Western schools. So instead of bridging the gap, they basically built a wall right down the middle, locking in the differences.
So now you have this forced union, this giant experiment held together by an outside power. It was a ticking time bomb, and as the world headed towards independence in the mid-20th century, that clock was about to run out.
October 1st, 1960. Nigeria is finally independent. You could imagine the celebrations, the hope for the future. A new African giant had arrived on the world stage. But it was built on a paradox. How do you forge one identity from hundreds of peoples who never chose to be together in the first place? It didn't take long to get an answer. Just 7 years later, the deep-seated tensions over power, identity, and resources boiled over. The southeastern region, the homeland of the Igbo people, decided it was done. They broke away. They announced the creation of their own independent country, the Republic of Biafra. This was a fundamental challenge to the very existence of Nigeria.
What came next was an absolute tragedy, a brutal civil war. And the human cost, it was just staggering.
over 1 million people lost their lives.
This was more than just a war over land. It was a nation fighting itself over its own soul. It was the devastating, violent consequence of forcing so many worlds into one container and hoping for the best.
The war eventually ended, and Biafra was reabsorbed into Nigeria. The country remained one. But that's not the end of the story. Not at all. The paradox created in 1914 is still very much alive today.
I mean, look at Nigeria now. It's an absolute powerhouse. Over 200 million people. Its music and movies, Nollywood, are taking over the world. It's a major political player in Africa. But underneath all that incredible energy, that unity is still fragile. Its diversity is its superpower, but it's also a constant source of friction.